Hi, I'm Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style.
And I'm Jill Chivers from shopyourwardrobe.com. And in this video we're going to talk about fashion trends and where you might fit on a new continuum that we have just this very moment made up and devised for your viewing pleasure, about where we sit on the continuum from I love new fashion trends, I'm always sort of the first to embrace them, they excite me and have me fall in love with clothing all over again every single day, through to the other end of the spectrum, which is I have no interest in fashion trends. Fashion trends I actually find distracting or something unattractive,
Wasteful.
unappealing, whatever the unword is for you. And where you might fit on that spectrum, we've been talking to a few women who identify themselves at different points along that, and we thought that could be a really interesting thing to talk about here and have you think about and tell us where you fit on that spectrum.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things to think about here because, okay, fashion is an industry. It's about making money, it's about newness, it's about change, and that's something that, and so there's always something new coming out, and it's every season there's something new, a new look, a new look, a new look.
Yeah.
So how much of that do we buy into? Why it's important to have some elements of new, I think, is always important.
Yes.
Because there is an element here that if you are, there's the stuck in the time warp, and then there's the I throw my entire wardrobe out every season and buy a new one, which is incredibly wasteful, in my opinion.
Yeah. You'll never guess where I sit on that one.
So and I think is that then going, but being able to add a bit of newness in gives us a freshness.
Yes.
It keeps us looking and feeling more modern, and it indicates to the world that we have an ability to deal with change and move with the times. And I think that it's getting that balance.
Yes.
That's important.
And balance does not mean 50-50. It doesn't mean 50% new, 50% new and 50% I keep my existing wardrobe. Balance is deeply, deeply personal. And I'm one of those people down that end of the spectrum, which is I don't really pay attention. No, let me change that. I don't pay attention to fashion trends. I don't find them relevant. I hate fashion magazines. The idea that suddenly pants have changed from straight leg to skinny leg, back to wide, and now we have to all change our black pants at work, because I find it ludicrous. I honestly do. And the fact that it's been externally imposed by some unknown style, that whole thing just really rubs me up the wrong way. I'm possibly getting a little bit close to a rant here with this. So I am one of those people that have to struggle a little bit with this idea of bringing some of the new in, and because the shopping that I do, I love the op shopping and the vintage shopping and the stuff that I've just decided for myself. It's not because I've seen it and I've thought, oh, I've got to have whatever, insert new thing here. It's because I've been thinking about or playing with my wardrobe and thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if I had whatever?
I suspect there is an element where it's in the zeitgeist, and this is something I notice, that we don't all suddenly go, I'm all wearing skinny jeans today. Right. You have the first early adopters and they will go and do it, and then gradually what happens is we see it around us all the time, and after a while we kind of just, so we don't go that's in fashion as such, but we kind of just go that's what I'm seeing everywhere, and so it kind of gets into our subconscious.
Right, yeah.
And I think, so you're a much slower adopter than someone who's the early adopter.
You can just say it, I'm a slow adopter, I am.
But there's still, as much as you're not consciously going, I need to have this piece of latest fashion, it might be any now and again when you hit some sort of mass point where you're seeing it, that every now and again you go, hey, maybe you're looking in your wardrobe and you don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's when you go, I really feel like I could have a bit of that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that, so it's just modernising in a, or just changing in a slower way than someone who just goes, it's in fashion right minute, and this I have to have, and I'm going to go.
And if you're op
shopping,
shopping, you're not getting it straight out fresh out of the stores, unless you're getting it from the women who did get it fresh out of the stores, and 10 minutes later they don't want it, and then it's in an op shop near you. And so that's another thing that happens with that. But your point before about being slow to adopt change is so true for me. I struggle with major life changes. It can take me ages to adjust to things. We moved house 15, 16 months ago, we downsized, and I'm still adjusting today to that sometimes. And so that's certainly certainly true for me. But what about women who are either further up or that maybe go to the opposite end of the spectrum? Women who are fascinated by new fashion trends, want to adopt them immediately when they see them, and find it really exciting, and it's really adding something positive on some level for them.
And I think it's, fine if you want to do it, and it depends on budget. I mean, I suppose you've always got to consider what is the impact of constantly acquiring new.
Yeah.
And I think, and we'll go do another video on talking about fashion trends and body and flattery, and I think that's something that's an important point, because I think that's where the new early adopters, that they may get caught up easily in getting the wrong thing. Yeah. And then also too, and I know we've talked about this before, where it's there's some latest fashion trend, and sometimes you go, I really want to try it out. And I go, this is often it's like, try it out in a cheaper way.
Yeah.
Try it out in a small way.
Yeah.
And then if you like it, maybe then you can invest more.
A cami top versus an overcoat, for example.
Yes. Or it's at the lower budget end, rather than I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars on something that is the latest trend right now, but maybe in 3 minutes it'll be gone. Yeah. And so I think that's also something to kind of think about, well, where am I? What do I tend to do? And I have heard of people who will just go, I just replace my wardrobe every year, and and it's almost like, and I kind of go, if you have to feel like you need to replace your whole wardrobe every year, there is something else going on in your life.
Yeah.
And to me, that's an element of that. There's deeper issues that are probably actually nothing to do with fashion.
Yeah.
And all to do with some sort of feeling of there's a hole they need filling, and I would suspect that that's something to see a counsellor about.
Yeah, and I mean that brings up the issue of consistency and stability, and everyone has some need for that in some way, some of us more than others, through to the novelty and the variety at the other end of the spectrum, and of course that can change in a woman's life over time as well, that we feel more drawn to novelty and variety at certain points in our life, and other times we just don't want that variability. We want something that's a little bit more reassuringly stable.
Yes, and I think, and it's often too what else is going on in your life, because there is a human need for a variety, and there's also a human need for stability.
Yes.
So, but maybe if everything else at the moment in your life is incredibly stable, and this is what I often see, it's when someone, say, needs to change job, they're dissatisfied in a different part of their life, then this acquisition phase happens, where it's new.
Yeah.
And I've seen this multiple times when I've been in wardrobes, and I'll start questioning, when did you start buying this? And it's like, at the time I realised I didn't like my job, but they've never put the two things together.
Interesting. That is really, really fascinating.
And then there'll be other times where, my life's falling apart, my husband's just left me and whatever, and it's like, I can't even think about anything else new. I've just got to hold on to what I know, what is stable. And that's where too, when these things happen, we can then get stuck, because that felt stable. Yeah. And I think, we could talk about this, but I think that's, it's something to think about.
It is, yeah. I'm interested, we're fascinated on, if there was a continuum, where you might be sitting now, and is that different at other times in your life? Has that changed, where you've felt this need for greater, I guess, stability and consistency and less attraction to fashion trends, and has it moved at the other end of the spectrum?
Let us know. We're fascinated to know your thoughts.